may not be suitable for all audiences.
Speak up! Quiet, Mum. Well, I can't hear a thing.
Art 101 with Mr. Burgher.
Welcome back to another episode of Art 101 with me, Mr. Burgher, a professional artist and educator, attempting to provide the best in our historical content. If you like the content, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, do all the things. Thanks a lot.
It's good to see you, man.
Yeah, I bet it is.
I'm here at the first American exhibition of Niki de Saint Phalle, a very prominent artist. Let's quit talking and jump right in. Considered an outsider for her lack of formal training, Niki de Saint Phalle is a French-born, American-raised, monumental sculptor, painter, filmmaker, and author. She had a very difficult and traumatic upbringing. Her mother was very strict and very much aggressive towards her children. 2 of her 5 siblings unalived themselves, and starting at the age 11, she was abused by her father. Because of this circumstance of her life, she couldn't focus on school. She would get expelled from school in 1941 at the same time that this abuse was occurring in her home life. She was then moved to live with her grandparents in New Jersey, the next year moving to New York. Then she was removed from that school and put into a convent school where she was expelled from there and would end up graduating from high school in Maryland in 1947. She would go into the world of fashion modeling at the age of 18. She would get married to someone from her youth in 1949, but she was often left to her own devices. That prompted her to begin a career in the arts. The first works that she was most known for were her assemblages. These were somewhat aggressive, angry works. After seeing Jackson Pollock's abstract expressionism in the 1950s, she began making work that was very much influenced by this idea, using found objects and slung paint. And as years would move forward, she would escalate this attack on her paintings. Again, following in a trend of not so positive relationships. On one occasion, she would steal the man's shirt and put it onto a panel of art where she would throw darts and even have the public throw darts at it. This idea of the dartboard was very much an echo of the pop art that was popular at the time, specifically looking at Jasper Johns, but she was also very much influenced by Robert Rauschenberg, John Cage, and Mario Boda.
What do you think of these works? I find them indescribably beautiful.
After a series of affairs, Niki de Saint Phalle stashed knives and things like that around the bedroom and the house and ended up attacking her husband's mistress. She was then put into a mental clinic where she was undergoing electroshock therapy and insulin therapy and moved to Spain to have her second child. It was there that she would begin to develop her first major works. In 1962, she would start working with a series which really illustrate the impact a culture has on the citizens. Her dual heritage are very much scarred by the cultures. The American toy pistols and figures of cowboys and Indians and war, the history of violence and her French European cultures, traumas from world wars, a history of wars for independence and colonizations of Vietnam and all parts of Africa very much influence these types of works. Another component of that is the display of her disdain for religious institutions. Now, these works are not a rebellion against a faith, but rather a reaction against the rigid social norms that they promote amongst the followers of that religion. what a difference a year makes. By 1963, the anger was really gone, and she was evolving into works that were really focused around this archetypal female figure. These figures would eventually be known as her nanas, which is a French slang for chicks. And the nanas would become major parts of other projects that she would work on. They were works that stood alone in the beginning, but eventually would become incorporated into things like her tarot card garden and very much populate her career for the rest of her life.
We ain't never had one of them before. Where do you think that's gonna get you?
In 1979, Niki de Saint Phalle would begin to work on her tarot garden. This was a monumental 20-year project that worked across 14 acres of Tuscany, Italy, that would really center on the idea of the tarot. There were sculptures that represented all 22 of the major cards, and as she was beginning to plan for this, there were lots of plans and drawings and studies for it, and she was very much influenced by the Watts Tower in LA, Parc Güell in Barcelona, and Ideal Palace in Hauterive, France. During this project, she would collaborate with many, including her husband and sculptor, Jean Tingley. Now, we've spoken about him before, but they collaborated and worked together for many years, and eventually they would become married in 1971. And I even have a video on one of their other collaborations, the Stravinsky Fountain in Paris, so you can check that out if you wish. At any rate, as she was creating this particular project, the Empress, in the form of a Sphinx, was her residence and workshop for several years, obviously as she's working on this project, but all of the drawings, the models, and there was perfume that was manufactured and sold to payroll this huge undertaking, but all of those things went into creating this work that was finally open to the public in 1998. Side note, although the origins are debated, the tarot likely originated in France in the 1600s. It was created as a deck with two sections, 22 major cards and 56 minor cards. It was only the major cards that were originally decorated until early in the 1900s when they began decorating all of the cards. But at any rate, most follow a shared system of symbols that go all the way back to those first 1600s decks.
There isn't a man or beast who'll get past that without setting off the alarm.
Once the tarot garden was completed, she was beginning to have more and more health problems in her life, so she decided to move to a climate better suited to her, which ended up being Logella, California, where she moved in 1993. And she was compelled to make something similar to what she had done with the tarot garden, but this time she was more influenced by the Native Americans, specifically of the region around California. The Ojibwe, the Navajo, and Hopi peoples of this region of California. Again, following the same model that she had previously gone through with the tarot garden, creating sketches and drawings, creating models, creating artworks to help fund the project along. She finally had the entire thing planned out, and the primary model was revealed in 2000, and right away it started to be constructed. Unfortunately, in May of 2002, Niki de Saint Phalle would pass away. Much of her health problems in later life were chronic health problems that were attributed to her exposure of things in the air, these airborne fiberglasses and things like that that she was working with and she was breathing in, getting into her lungs, and all of that obviously caused health issues, which is why precautions always need to be taken, especially if you're working around chemicals and things like that, things that are in the air. But despite her passing, the project would continue and finally open to the public a year after her passing in 2003.
Damn!
What is the legacy of Niki de Saint Phalle? Well, she is an individual that used art as a way of dealing with her trauma. This was a form of therapy. And that therapy evolved into a passion of creation, and that passion of creation persuaded her to get information. She didn't go to a college or a university or a school to obtain that knowledge. She went to the artists themselves, and she learned from working with these sculptors and artists and craftspeople that knew what they were doing. And so it was more of an apprenticeship sort of education. And there's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with going that route of education if you've got the right people and supports around you. And she certainly did. Her artwork continues to amaze and mesmerize people that go into these galleries and spaces, and it was awesome to be able to be a part of the first exhibition of her work in the United States, and I believe in the world. So I got to be a part of history. Hopefully you will find your way into those galleries and museums so you can also be able to be a part of viewing the amazing artwork that is in our world and learn from those impactful artists that have created it. Friends, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I love being able to bring it to you. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.
Shake my head. LOL. Go the f*** up, you f***ing asshole. Shake my head.